audio of my Saturday, essentially. Most of it comes from the march, but some of it also comes from an event that I went to Saturday night. But this is just so you sort of get the sense of the emotion, I guess, really, and the raw emotion and passion of what it was like and what it very much still is down there. It should be noted that the sound that you're hearing is from King Britt, who's a famous DJ and producer. He went down that night and did a live scoring of a compilation of footage from the events, and so that's what you're hearing here. But here it is. So I don't know if you were able to hear all of that, but there were a lot of really interesting quotes and things that I was able to catch that really speak to the feeling. But basically, the space of the protest is essentially like nothing I've ever seen, and nothing a lot of people that I was have ever seen. I think nothing that we have collectively seen in a very, very long time. And it was so, the most stunning thing about it, and the thing that kind of left me in like a mouth-gaping awe and silence, was that it was so powerfully led by the youth. Like, so led by these young people, and a lot, predominantly young women actually, who were just out there and so brave and so fearless at confronting the police and like, you know, we're used to racial microaggressions, I think is the term, but this was just flat out racial aggression. And I had never seen anyone really like picking that up and taking that and going to spar with that. And to sort of like deviate a little bit and get a little spiritual, the amount of times that I was down there that I heard people sort of talk about the ancestors and the ancestors being pissed off and the ancestors being awoken, you know, I heard that a lot. And whether you believe in that kind of thing or you don't, there was something that, you know, you just look at these kids and you're like, where are you getting this energy from? And it was just so like, it was coming from a force that was greater than themselves, and just like, they're just pulling from some sort of energy and some sort of rage that has been around for much longer than their own lifetimes. And it was really, just really, really, really incredible. And I tried to be as sort of objective as I could and just sort of be observing, because I was recording audio and trying to interview people, and you just automatically get swept up in that energy. And so like the next thing you know, like I literally dropped all my equipment and my hands were in the air, and I was like, you know, yelling, you know, and don't shoot, and doing the chants with these people, and like, you know, literally from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. people were out there. And I don't mean people like they came and they went, or it ebbed and flowed. I mean like, no, there was a steady crowd and presence out there in front front of this police station in the thicket of like hot Missouri summer, under a sun, no clouds, chanting that entire time. Like in New York, we've all been to protests. You know, we get a little tired after a couple of groups of like, this is what democracy looks like, and then we're done. No. 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. out there chanting, no water, no food, not stopping. Like that is incredible strength and incredible power. I've never seen anything like that before in my life, and like that's what you see down there. And there are a couple of interesting moments. Let's see what the next picture is. Yeah, these are some of the women who were just out there like going for it, going really hard. And this next image, this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying racial aggression. They actually got a little bit closer to this, but from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., staring down this line of all white officers and saying things to them like, you don't even like black people, get out of our neighborhood, child murderer, you know, like we know you're racist, where are your hoods at? The one black cop that was out there was Ron Johnson, who we've all seen, like literally someone in his face being like, you're a house nigger, you're an Uncle Tom, like straight going off and not stopping, and just so much passion. The woman that I ran into yesterday was just like, you would get to a point where like parents who brought children would forget that they had kids and that they needed to like protect their kids, and she was saying, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like on one hand, it's incredible that they were that passionate, but on the other hand, like how are you so caught up in a moment that you forget the instinctual thing to protect your child? Yeah, I mean that for hours. It was just something else. The other thing is that people brought into the space their own baggage, which you have to remember, because it was people from Ferguson and people from St. Louis, but also that weekend, like thousands of people from around the country had come down. And you ran into these folks. And people were really bringing in to the space their own baggage and their own issues. And like, you know, I said personally, I've never seen anything like this, both in passion and also in the sense of like, racial aggression. Like I've never seen a young black woman my age or slightly younger like yell in the face of a white guy who has his hand on his gun ready to shoot her at any given time and calling him out on his own racism. So that was just really poignant, and you just had all these emotions kind of flaring up and that baggage further fueling this. And for me, one of the more critical moments was so the Nation of Islam did their thing where they walked in, and it was crazy. You've never seen an entrance until you see the Nation of Islam entrance. First of all, a guy literally drives down the street on top of a car with a camera, and a guy is in the car with like a microphone and a megaphone just like yelling at everyone, taking up the street, and then this whole crowd of guys in suits and bow ties literally sort of march down the street, and they're carrying an image of Mike Brown, and they've got the father and the mother with them, and they basically shut down this entire street. And I said in the moment, it's actually really reminiscent of when you're watching the news, and you're watching news of the Middle East, and you see people parading for the funeral of a martyr. It looked very identical to that. And they shut down the street, and so they roll up, and they have a microphone and an amplifying system, and they start yelling at people to come away from the police station and start coming towards them because they have things to say. So this is an issue of things, that's something that's going on down there, which is the fracturing within the community. And the fracturing specifically between organizations and independent protesters, and between the older people and between the youth. And so the Nation of Islam pulls everyone over, they have the father speak, and they do their thing. The mother waits, she doesn't want to speak. They do their thing of like, we're going to have this action, da-da-da-da, let's all chant. I'm black and I'm proud, okay, we're leaving. And as they leave, they're kind of taking a little bit of the crowd and the momentum that they brought with them. And I looked to my left, and suddenly the young Black Panther member who had been literally like 5 minutes ago over there having people chant like Black Power is next to me, and he's just screaming, why are you leaving? Don't leave us. Why are you leaving us? You always do this. You always come and then you leave us and you forget about us and you forget about the youth and you don't like us, and then you know what? It's the ones that you call thugs and the ones that you call thugs and looters who are going to be the ones that fight for you. And everyone knows that everyone is here right now because the youth resisted. because the youth in Ferguson stood up and resisted, and you're leaving us. And in that moment, and also because he was so close to me, I almost thought that he was talking to me. And the reason I thought that is because this trip really made me check my own privilege as a northern black person, and as a, I guess, a relatively middle-class northern black person, a socially mobile northern black person with education. And even though I grew up in like, whatever, the hood of a really segregated city, around people who probably look like this young man, and around the thugs and the looters, when you are put on a pathway to get social mobility in this country and you're from certain places, you often do have to leave those people, and you have to, like, you know, forsake your memories of them, and you kind of then get socialized into the people who look at them like just thugs and looters, and who do forget about them, and who don't always come back for them. And so that was like a really emotional moment for me. But he was also talking to the Nation of Islam, and he was also talking to the elders, and he was also saying the same thing of these black elders who did what they had to do, but now have this extreme disconnect between the young black youth of today. So that's something very real. That's a real sense of baggage that a lot of people are dealing with and continuing to navigate down there. But that's part of the reason why Saturday was that protest was so intense. The second story I want to kind of tell of what I did on Saturday was the reason I didn't go to the march is because our group separated. And so I sent part of our group to the march, and myself and two other folks went to the I Heart Ferguson distribution center in this coffee house. So I Heart Ferguson is this campaign started by the old mayor. And it's basically exactly what it sounds like. It's a bunch of signs and t-shirts that say I Heart Ferguson, and you know, they printed like 3,000 or something, and they take and that's their response to what's going on. It's like, we need to get people to love Ferguson. This is our town, you know, this is our city, these are our people, we need to all come together, unified. Da, da, da. You see a lot of like signs of like Ferguson, you know, pray for us, or United We Stand, or some stuff like that, as if like a terrorist attack happened there, but like whatever. So they have these signs, and they're taking these signs out, and it was really popular. I mean, they printed out like 3,000 signs. We got there maybe an hour after they started, and all of the signs were gone. So like people were really engaged with this. And I spoke to the older mayor, and he was just saying, you know, that is not the real Ferguson. You know, there could have been black people in the police, but they don't come out and sign up. There could have been, you know, the black people don't vote. Nobody talks about all of the organizations that have already been existing, trying to help these people. Nobody talks about the businesses that got destroyed and looted. How come people aren't trying to help that? How come people aren't doing something more constructive? Why are they out there yelling? Nobody talks about how these people just got dumped on us. You know, like they took a bunch of poor people, like the state and federal housing projects took a bunch of poor people and dumped them here and dumped them there and moved them around so that they don't get a chance to make roots in this city. And you know, they can't really come out and be members of the community, and they can't even pay their bills, so how are they supposed to come out and do these things? And there have been people who have been trying to support them, and nobody's talking about that. This is not the Ferguson that we know. And so on and so forth. And then he made a lot of great points about the structural issues, about the housing projects that are not just in Ferguson, but all around this country, where poor people are totally just like, okay, we put you here, no, we're taking you out, we put you here, oh, you can't pay that, we're putting you here, right? Like that's something that we all know very well here in New York that happens. And all these things, and so this is my first, you know, this is all I'm seeing in Ferguson, so I'm being like, oh man, people aren't asking these questions, you're right, that's crazy. So the next thing we do is we were working with this organic farm. It's the oldest organic farm in Missouri, and they had asked us to come out and help them hand out flyers about their wellness programs and this, that, and the other, and all the cool things that they do because they're trying to do outreach to these communities.
What's the name of the farm?
Earth Dance. And so there's like Center Ferguson, and then there's East Ferguson and West Ferguson, and on those fringes are where the sort of impoverished communities and communities of color live. So they're trying to go to those fringes and do this work. We go to the farmer's market, the Ferguson farmer's market, and it's just lovely. Like, I have a lovely time. I'm like hula hooping with beautiful little multiracial babies, and I'm meeting like all of these awesome people who are smiling, and there's music, and I've seen more black people at that farmer's market than I've ever seen in Union Square, like in 7 years. You know, so I'm thinking like, oh my God, what are they talking about, Ferguson? This is a great place. This is a city going through a tough time. Like, people are getting story, oh man, all of that. And then I go to the protest and the march and I see this, and then I'm like, okay, so maybe there are two different things going on here. But we left this to go get some food and to also go out and buy food for people at the protest and buy water for them. So we went to this, we couldn't find anything to eat ever, at all, ever. It was a huge issue. And there was a block near the police station, like if you go to the east, where there were a bunch of restaurants that were open, but there were also like some lovely white Fergusonians who decided to spend their day sitting in front of these restaurants and calling people niggers as they walked by. So we weren't going to eat there. So we went to the east and we went to a Chinese restaurant. And it was literally 2 or 3 blocks away from like the police station where this protest was happening. And we took the car so that we could put water in it and then drive it back. So we get there and we're getting out of the car and I look around and I realized that I was in the exact same lot as the farmer's market. And it was all like packed up and everything, but we were right there, like 2 blocks away, and we're here, like little idyllic, like farmer's market, oh my god, hula hooping, this place is so great, and literally 2 to 3 blocks away is like racial hell on earth, like everything exploding, and it just blew our minds, and there was only 3 of us who had had this experience, so the 3 of us literally like, were just stunned, and everyone was like, well, what's wrong? And I'm like, this is insane. It's not that there are some people over there and we don't understand them. They are literally 2 or 3 blocks away from you, and you could not be more further removed from each other. And that's so terrifying to me. But that's real, and that like is mirrored everywhere through this country. And it's this idea that people who are neighbors, who literally don't know each other and can't understand each other's lives. Like, I don't think the people I met that morning were sincere racists. I don't think they were lying. I don't think they were necessarily in denial. I think they knew and understood their city to the capacity with which they knew and understood it. And even like the lovely hippie liberal young lady who was at this Earth Dance organic farm who wanted to have us help her do this outreach, you go back and you think, why are you waiting for the outsiders from New York City to go into this scary black neighborhood to do this outreach for you? Why haven't you just gone over there? They're 2 blocks away from you. Like, it's not as bad as you actually thought it was. This is a very small space. So those imaginary borders and boundaries are very real. There's something I know very well because growing up, I had to cross an imaginary border just to go to my private school. And every day I would go back and forth Main Street, and it would be like night and day. The Hood on this side, and like palatial, wonderful North Buffalo on this side. And it was just one street that separated them. At another meeting, this older Israeli woman came and she shared her story. And basically, up until she was 64, she was just this raging racist Zionist. And she lived in West Jerusalem. And she also had never had a conversation with a Palestinian before. She might have like seen them in passing, they might have like served her once in a restaurant, but because of road systems and just because of like, she was able to, despite living in Jerusalem, she never had a conversation with a Palestinian before. And one day when she was 64, there was a protest or a riot or something going on in East Jerusalem, and she was fed up, so she decided to go over there and yell at these Palestinians, but what's your problem? And going there to do that, she ended up actually having conversations. And a conversation led to more conversations, led to more conversations and more revelations, and then she said that she basically realized her life had been stolen from her, that she had spent her entire life never even knowing or seeing or connecting with these people or these sides. And ever since then, she's 70 now, so for the past 6 years, she's been spending her time with like disabusing herself from that Zionism and like working and fighting for the Palestinian cause and for Palestinian rights. But that's real, and that's Israel and Palestine, but I could probably find you the same exact story of someone from where I'm from in Buffalo, or someone from St. Louis or Ferguson, Missouri. That's real. And if you look at these 2 issues and you look how explosive and problematic and deadly they are in history, like the fact that you can make those connections, I think, is really troubling. So that was Saturday. There are a couple more things I want to touch on, and then I'll go to some takeaways. And first and foremost, I just want to talk about the role of women. And just to simply say, like, women are the movement down there. Young women are the ones who are leading. Young black women are leading. And some of them are queer, some of them are educated, some of them are not educated, some of them have natural hair, some of them have, weave, some of them speak in syrupy accents, and so forth and so on, but nonetheless, these women are really the ones who are leading. They are out there in the front lines. They are the people who are standing there yelling at the cops from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. They are the people who are not even just standing at the front line, but when there's a woman yelling at nigger to everyone she passes by, they're the ones grabbing the shirtless young men and pulling them back and keeping them on lock of what's important. They're the ones doing that and doing this work. And you talk about intersections and making the connections, and like we really do need to start uplifting women of color and young black women, because right now they're the ones who are really leading this movement. So I'm gonna play another video. This young woman is a little explosive, and I don't want to say that her sentiments spoke for everyone, but just so you could see the kind of power that I'm talking about, and like this bravery, and this just like going out there and putting it all on the line to do this work. Check it out, I guess.
Somebody give me some reasons, 'cause I don't know how.
But she's not alone in either her passion or her leadership or her fervor. And I want to touch on something that she said, which is, if you're not ready to die for this, go home. That is an absolutely true statement. People there are willing to die for this, and it is not being said of like, this is how serious it is, or like, ha ha ha, whatever. No. Literally, they are willing to die. If their lives are ended, that's okay. And time after time, you'll hear this. And also, like, Tefpo, one of the things that he said time after time, and to us directly, is like, if you are not willing to die, don't come down here. And so the reason for that sentiment, whether or not it's truthful, whether or not there's going to be mass executions of these people, the reason that there's that sentiment is twofold. One is that you're talking to people who are low on resources and low on opportunities, have already had a lot of their friends killed, a lot of their friends in prison, don't really have very many options. And so the idea of sort of being out here and being in these streets and dying possibly for justice is not so far off the table and doesn't seem that bad. But more importantly than that, you're talking to people who, in the process of being citizens, in the process of being neighbors, in the process of just wanting answers, were shot at with tear gas, were shot at with rubber and wooden bullets, were shot at with live ammo, had tear gas fired at them, at their children, at their grandparents, at their grandmothers. We met a woman named Dorothy who was shot twice in the hip. She's like in her 80s while protesting, and she kept marching. You're talking to people like that. You're talking to people who have been beaten by cops. You're talking to people who have had dogs sicked on them, people who have had sniper rifles aimed at them for just walking across their street. Their neighborhoods have been occupied. Helicopters have buzzed above their old elementary schools. They've been literally thrown on the ground and thought that they were going to die when a police in full riot gear and like camouflage held a M16 to the back of their head and said, if you move, I'm going to fucking kill you. So you were talking to people who've literally been in situations where actually, yeah, I might die for this, and at this point of the like straight brutality that we've had to face, you're gonna have to kill me. You're gonna have to kill me for me to stop, and for me to stop demanding justice, and for me to stop demanding dignity. So that's the sentiment of being willing to die for it. And there was a point in time, I won't go into the story, I think the link is up on the Facebook event page if you want to read it. I wrote about it lengthily on AfroCom. But there was a point that Saturday night where after this whole day, and after a really lovely day, and after just socializing with people and really connecting and feeling like I found some sense of sisterhood really, because it was predominantly black women, there came a time where they were rounding people up to go up to West Florissant and participate in night protests. And Tef came up again, and a reverend from the church came up again, and they just started speaking about what we were going into and how fallback positions are gone. I mean, it's literally a war out there. Like, the gangs of St. Louis have put down their guns away from each other. They've come to truces, and they are now pointing their guns at the police. And they're actually at war with the police. And people are unifying. The police are now crazed, they say, because their egos have been bruised. And it's essentially like, if you get out of your car, you're going to get arrested, right? Like, you can't stand still because they'll arrest you, but you also can't really walk around because they'll arrest you. If you go in that McDonald's parking lot, they're going to circle around you and make you walk in circles, and you're going to be sitting ducks, and they're going to arrest you. Somebody might run up on you because you're not from here, and it might be a gang member going into the war, and just be like, no, it's cool, and it might be okay. Like, that, it went on, but like, that was the situation that we were being told we were about to walk into. That you might get shot by a gang, or you might get shot by crossfire, and the police don't really give a fuck anymore, so they might beat you, they might arrest you, they might accidentally kill you and say, who knows what, right? Because police are killing people every day, and they're killing people who have like their hands handcuffed behind their back and they're shooting themselves. So like, it's really volatile, and so to have that be told to you, and then to be standing next to a crowd of like 150, 200 people who are now writing legal aid numbers down on their arm because they're ready and willing to be arrested, and they're ready and willing to die for it, and you're not seeing anyone falter. It just became this moment of like, okay, so if I go out here, I might either experience bodily harm, I might get arrested, I might die. Probably nothing good is going to come from going out there, but I can't leave these people, so yeah, right now I'm willing to die for this too. And so, I don't know, it's pretty indescribable to have that happen to you. And all I'm going to say is that it's probably changed me for the rest of my life, because I don't think there's very many options when you're absolutely terrified for your safety and for your life, and yet you're willing to run into the fire with the people standing next to you to fight for this, because it's that bigger than you. It's bigger than you, and it's bigger than my lifespan, and it goes all the way to the past, and it goes all the way to the future. And that's what happened. And there we prayed, and before we prayed, this Native American woman came out, and she lit sage, and she did a prayer, and before she did a prayer, she said that when Mike Brown was shot and killed and left to bleed out on the ground for 4.5 hours, his blood seeped into the ground and through the concrete and mixed with her ancestors' blood, and it angered them. And they awoke, and they sent her to tell us that the tribe was standing with them and that they're organizing. And that was just beyond powerful. Like, again, to take it to a spiritual level, to just really think about that his blood mixed into the ground and angered her ancestors, and that, you know, it's so powerful. So like, that was a moment where you realize it's so much more beyond my own individual fear, or my own life, or my own body. And so, you know, yeah, I'm gonna ride with you all, and I'm gonna be willing to die too. But that's the power of what's going on. The last thing I want to say that I'm really happy about what this work has done is that it's brought people into the hood. This is a picture of us at Canfield. They had a town hall, the Nation of Islam organized a town hall speaking out there. But it's really brought folks back into these marginalized spaces. And I mean, Canfield isn't necessarily that bad. But again, we were also in the 3rd ward of St. Louis, which is actually really bad. But we were out here all Sunday for the most part, and I was just admiring that, like, the sun over these grassy knolls is actually really beautiful, and these little kids are outside playing, and they're super adorable, and they're all these families. And this is actually beautiful. And our trip was called Black Life is Beautiful because the goal was to go out and really record images and sounds of the complexities and the richness of Black urban life. And to get from that how there can be beauty in some of the things that are deemed as ugly. And this is a great example of that, because we're in this space that is, you know, basically a residential area of the undesirables, but there is so much beauty in it. And I realized that without this issue, we probably wouldn't have gone there, right? People are going into spaces, whether locally or on a national level, and talking to people and sharing with people they would never have listened to or shared with or gone into before. And that's actually something that's really powerful because it has a great opportunity to tilt the scale. So I'm gonna show another video for a couple of minutes. And I think what it is that at the beginning of the town hall, it's them revving up to go to the town hall. But I think it's just important for you to see the sights and the sounds of this, and just be out here with us for a couple of minutes.
What's this? Man, put our heads together. Everybody we got to go through, but let's go climb the river. Do what God can put our brothers. Everybody down here, everybody now, put your hands together. Touch the left leg. Everybody in, everybody in. Brothers down here, come on out. Come on in, brothers. Come on in, brothers. Come on, brothers. We got one out. Hey, come in. Step in the step. Everybody step in the step. Step in the step. Step in another step. That's important. Touch the Lord's shoulder. Hey, come on in, brother Amir. Y'all come on in. Brother Paul, come on in.
It's about that unity right now. Everybody together, man. We stand strong together.
Brother, let's like that.
That's right, man. You said it, brother.
Until 5.446 to some G's, and then look at the folks in Beaumont, so there in Chicago, Cincinnati, so that till we all hook up, brother. One man rises, another man falls. Oh Allah, we beseech in your name, oh Allah. Almost denouncing, almost merciful, almost generous, oh self-subsisting. Oh eternal, oh great one, oh provider, oh most wise, praise be to you. There's no God but you. Oh, you was the best of those who provide comfort. Please save us from the fire, oh Lord. Oh chief, you answer prayers. You raise the ranks. You restore bounty. You grant plea. You accept repentance. You remove sin. You know the mystery and you remove misfortunes. Praise be to you. There's no God but you. Oh, you was the best of those who provide comfort. Please save us from the fire, Lord. Oh, Lord, nothing is easy except for what you make easy. And you make the hard easy if you please. Oh, Lord, bless us to remember and to be grateful to you and to worship you in the best way you see fit. Oh, Lord, give us the serenity to understand the things we cannot change and the courage to change the things that we can and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. Now, when we start to chant this time, because we here for a reason, we not here just playing. No. Let them rise and all they want to, but that don't stop us from being organized. I want you to start out, we young, and we strong, and we marching all day. When we get the strong, look at me, y'all. I want everybody to get strong. We young, we strong, and we marching all day. We young, we strong, and we marching all day long. We young, we strong, and we marching all day long. We young, we strong, and we marching all day long. We young, we strong, and we marching all day long. We young, and we strong, and we marching all day long. We young, we strong, and we marching all day long. We young, we strong, and we marching all day long. We young, we strong, and we marching all day long. We young, we strong, and we marching all day long. We young, we strong, and we marching all day long. We young, we strong, and we marching all day long. And we love you. We strong, and we marching all day long. We young, and we strong, and we marching all day long. Don't shoot, hands up, 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 don't shoot. Well, we're gonna y'all listen up. What we're gonna do.
Yeah, I'll stop it there. I mean, that passion is still there. This was like 3 weeks into it, and now we're over a month into it. And yesterday, they basically shut down the St. Louis City Council meeting with the exact same energy, the exact same fervor, large number of people chanting again all night long. Like it's something that I haven't been seen in a while, and maybe ever. And basically, to bring it back to the major takeaway, and then I'll take some questions. When we come to the question of, so is this a moment or is this a movement? My answer is that yes, it's a movement, but we have to do some reshifting in our thinking of how we think about protests and movements to understand what kind of movement it is, right? So I think that we've, and I have this quote up from Zizek for a reason, because I really like what he's saying about A, a radical revolution, and then B, not only reinventing the dreams, but reinventing the mode of dreaming. I think for a while we've been really working through and within neoliberal spaces, and we've been thinking about these very sort of neoliberal goals, right? Let's arrest this one person here. Let's get marriage for everyone here. Let's like change that law there. Let's register everyone to vote. And not to take away from those goals and what those things accomplish, they're very real and they do things, but they don't necessarily go to create that radical overall shift. And also within, we're talking about the method of dreaming, thinking about who's leading this and where these voices are coming from and what's happening. We really need to start learning how to work from within those marginalized spaces and within that space of the hood and within the space of the Canfield and within the space of the Canfield and the Fergusons and the West Florescents all across this country and even here in New York and even here in Bed-Stuy. Because that's what's going to help us to liberate these people, right? And like that's what's going to help us to connect with them and help them propel their mission. And I really think that, and this might sound, I don't know how this is going to sound, but it's more than looking for these structural results and looking for these materialized results. This is about something greater. It's about a cultural revolution. And the real revolution is learning how to love Black people, learning how to value Black life, and learning how to value Black rage. And if you really think about it, we don't have a lot of mechanisms for that right now. Like we totally know about Black pain, but even through our major visuals, we only understand it in the past. Like we only talk about the civil rights movement as something that happened and ended and was down there in the South and way, way far away, right? And then, you know, look at the past big Black movies of the last year. You have like 12 Years a Slave and then Django Unchained and The Help and whatever, that's problematic, I know. But even with 12 Years a Slave, right, we're talking about Black pain that is so far away and so far removed, and really at the hands of like these crazy, maniacal, almost not even human white people played by Sarah Paulson and Michael Fassbender, right? And so like even, you can't even really connect with them and their own humanity, and what goal does that do? This is really about learning how to bring this back and bring this back to us and where we are now in this moment and revolutionizing ourselves and our culture here in the present to really learn how to love these people again and how to accept these people and how to make room for Black rage and make room for Black voices and make room for this liberation. Because if you can liberate Black people and if you can start valuing these lives and valuing these voices, then you can start valuing the lives and voices of queer people too, and the lives and voices of brown people, and the lives and voices of migrants, and the lives and voices of Palestinians. Like you can get yourself to a place where we are starting to really value and cherish the marginalized people, then it's going to create a lot of freedoms for everyone universally. And I guess the last thing that I would say on a way to do that is, and it's something that we've started doing, is something that I did with this, which is breaking away from the nonprofit industrial complex. There are organizations down there who are doing work, and some of them are doing very good work. But ultimately, all of them exist in this sort of capitalistic frame of requiring money, of having people on salaries, of needing to raise funds and pay people, and all of this kind of work, and then what that gets them tied to politically and how that limits them, and then also being the only ones who have the connections to mainstream media, so that you get to a space where we as people and we as witnesses and we as maybe potential activists and actors are only relying on a choice few institutions and a choice few positions of power to relay to us what we should be seeing and what we should be thinking. And really, everyone as an individual has the right to see and to hear and to experience on their own, and to bring their own baggage into the situation if that's what needs to happen. And we have the power to do that. And because we're still so reliant on the system of the nonprofit industrial complex, I don't think we're really realizing this yet, but as I kind of hinted to, that work of literally going and of sharing and of doing things like this, of like telling stories and being people who can just go down there and enter Canfield or go down there and sit and talk with someone like Tef or someone like Tori, and being able to bring that back and bring that back to our own communities. That's far more powerful than just sitting and relying on like, you know, big name organization A or buying a t-shirt or like depending on mainstream news and media. That's actually how you're going to create that change. And it's not that hard. I mean, I think we're almost there in terms of shifting. Like we raised $2,500 to just go and do this as a group of random individuals that people didn't really know from whoever, but the work is there and you're able to do it. So I'll take a couple of questions now, but while I do that, I'm gonna pass around the sign-up sheet. I'm currently still doing work with a group of, it's kind of a coalition of independent activists from a variety of backgrounds. October is a really big month of action in Ferguson and around the nation, and we're working to build actions here in Brooklyn and actually New York City wide throughout that month. So if you send me your email, your Twitter, or both, or whatever, I will get you plugged into all of that. So while I pass this around, I will happily take any questions you can have.
Because like, one thing I tapped into a lot was you said the youth is really, like, leading. Could you give us, like, maybe an age bracket of those youth that were, like, really on the streets and like, getting things going? Like,
An age bracket? I would say anywhere between 17 and 26. Sure. Speaking of youth who are out in the streets, Lost Voices right now is a group of youth who have been literally occupying spaces. Like they have a little hideout in front of the police station, and they have one on the corner of Canfield and West Florissant. If you find them on Facebook, it's just Lost Voices or The Lost Voices. They're trying to raise money right now to buy winter gear and warm weather gear so that they can continue to stay outside. So whether you send them like a $10 Target or Walmart, I know, like Target and Walmart, but that's what they got down there. If you send them a Target and Walmart gift card or some money, or if you have older winter clothes that you can donate, please feel free to. Lost Voices.
The revolution of loving Black people and Black lives is a revolution of a kind of consciousness. I'm thinking when Occupy Wall Street and the Occupy movements were shut down and dispersed, one of the political analyses was that it didn't do anything, and of course there's a different understanding inherent in kind of what you're saying about the change of emotion and consciousness and what's seen and what's not seen. I was wondering if you would be interested in talking about this continuity of shift.
Oh yeah, totally. I didn't get to say that, but that's actually a point that I was going to make, which is in the same way that Occupy Wall Street is stated to have not really done anything structurally and had any material results, the movement that it created, right, the language that it brought out, the just literally group of young activists who could now go out and start doing this work and rethinking it, whether from that space and even, you know, in the mainstream space, like we're all talking about the 99%, right? Like that kind of cultural work is something that I think this movement right now has the potential to replicate or continue or however you want to put it. But I definitely agree that it's about creating that culture. And so being able to break away in a similar vein that Occupy Wall Street did, being able to break away again from that reliance on major nonprofits, being able to individualize it, being able to spread it out nationally and localize it, and then also just being able to continue to generate a variety of voices and of images and of video, which is so critically important because the big stories are missing all of these nuances. Those are all parts of ways that I think this cultural revolution will really be able to take shape and be pushed out. And it's not over. I mean, again, the passion down in Ferguson is so strong, and a lot of us are gearing up to start hearing things in October. So we'll continue to see how it goes.
these videos are so online, so
Not yet, but they will be. We're all still mulling about them and editing them and trying to balance that work with our actual day jobs, which is becoming problematic. Hopefully we'll all stay employed, but we don't know yet. Yes.
I was wondering, because I'm a master's in fine arts here, and I'm very passionate about this incident, and I don't know, I'm an artist because I don't want to feel hopeless. And when I see this happen, I've marched for Trayvon. I've been in the muck before, trying to stand up for change and for there to be love for Black life. But I'm finding sometimes it becomes discouraging when there's not necessarily momentum that's being maintained. And I want to know, as far as like, what could I do to assist with maintaining this momentum as a Black woman who would ultimately give birth to someone who would inherit my complexion and possibly have to deal with some of the same things that are going to be cause for their loss of life. Like, I'm sorry, I'm emotional about it, but I don't know how to, like,
Yeah, the weight of that historical failure is really heavy, right? Like, it's so tremendously heavy. And what it really, I think, honestly comes down to is like, our grandparents didn't fix it, they can't fix it. Our parents, they didn't fix it, they can't fix it. We won't fix it, but we are in a very interesting position right now. I mean, look at the people in this room and think about where we are and think about, what you're going to do, right? Like, you are going to graduate, you are going to go out, you're going to be in the classrooms, you're going to be writing, you're going to be making the art, you're going to be sharing, you're going to be raising children, you're going to be a leader in the community. We all have this potential right now to really take hold of this critical moment and start changing things, at least within our own inner circles and within our own lives. And it's going to be hard. Like, no, I don't think the police are going to stop, killing unarmed Black kids anytime soon. And how to work through that and continue to push against that, and it just seems so heavy, it seems so awful, is really, really difficult. But I can tell you that the two things that have saved me this summer has been solidarity, has been having people standing next to me and having people work with me. And I said recently that there are a lot of quotes that are like, friends are the people who are still standing when the smoke settles. But I realized this summer that friends are the people who run into the fire with you. So I would say, don't be alone. You don't have to be alone. There are other people out here with you in this mission. There are other people out here who are trying to do this work. And even if you create your own little island of that support and that solidarity, that's still a lot. And then B, as an artist, it's funny, there's a whole art exhibit happening right now in St. Louis, or a call for submissions called Hands Up, Artists Respond. And it's being hosted in this home that's been turned into a gallery in North St. Louis, which is like the ghetto. It's totally another space of the undesirables, but there's beautiful art that's happening there, and beautiful creation, and beautiful work that's being shown there. And it's like all of these artists responding to it. And it's going to give this movement another way to continue living, another way to continue being there. And so, there's work to do within the art space, I feel, especially as we're talking about a need to create a diversity of voices and images of this. I think that work is going to be really important. And I think to just have, honestly, this work should be nationwide, it should be global. But all you need to do is go and follow any of those people I mentioned on Twitter, or get yourself plugged in, and like, their passion and their commitment will keep you afloat, and it'll keep you pushing and wanting to do things too. And like I said, we're going to try and keep doing this work, and I hope this sheet gets passed around so I can plug you all in. But people aren't stopping, and I don't know. It might be futile, it might not, but it doesn't mean that you need to sit down and take it, because you have people who will stand next to you and continue to run into that fire with you.
I don't know, it's probably kind of an impractical question, but is there any way that the police department could be declared a terrorist organization? Because that's what became so clear to me in your presentation when you showed that this was a residential area. To leave a body of a citizen in a residential area who has been murdered for 4 hours is a deliberate terroristic attempt to intimidate the population. And I don't know how much more obvious. I mean, I guess this is a banal observation, but it particularly struck me when you showed, you know, because I had assumed, like everyone else, that this was kind of a urban, you know, stores and et cetera, but there's something about the deliberateness and the and the display, the spectacularization of a murdered body, that, you know, it kind of has the same effect of terrorizing as lynching did in the previous century.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, people are already saying that. I mean, people are
yeah,
already
you
believing
imagine, yeah.
his body was left there as a sign and as a way for the police to say to that community, we don't care about you, watch out. And that's just another reason why this passion continues. And to bring it back to something that I personally witnessed, so we were out there on Saturday and there was that line of angry looking white police officers facing off against these people. And, you know, that was like, wow, man, that's so intense. It took a step back, and a friend of mine who was with me says, that was really bizarre. And I go, what do you mean? She goes, I've been to protests in New York City, and we've yelled at the NYPD, and we've been as close to the building as possible. We've been yelling at a building. There was no reason for them to be standing out there like that. Mm-hmm. The fact that they stood out there in that line, arms crossed, arms on their guns, arms on their tasers, just staring down these protesters, that was actually a counter-protest. Mm-hmm. So the police are terrorizing this neighborhood. Right. They are terrorizing these residents. They've been doing it, and they're feeling even more emboldened to do so now after all of this. So it is an actual concern of mine what will happen if and when Darren Wilson is not dead. I don't know if you all heard, but the prosecutor's office just gave the grand jury until January 7th to make a decision, as opposed to October. So, I mean, I know the Justice Department is investigating, and you know, all of that. I don't know in terms of legally if they'll be able to be called a terrorist organization, but there's no doubt in my mind that they are terrorizing these people and that they are not, you know, that standing in that counter-protest. Like, it's scary. It really is scary to think of what will happen when, like, these people have been peaceful. They've been disruptive, but they've been peaceful. But like somebody earlier in the audio I played, you know, what happens if St. Louis gets involved? Or what happens when the people who are not afraid of the police come out and it's just an all-out war? Like, there's very much a potential for that. We're talking about people who are already willing to die. We're also talking about, I just want to say this, we're talking about an open carry state. I don't like guns at all very much, but we're talking about a state where you can open carry. You're allowed to have a weapon on you. And if we think a little critically about what the Second Amendment actually allows, right? That people need to be armed, a well-armed militia must be maintained in order to protect the free state. And you're talking about a tyrannical terroristic force against the people of a free state. What is the legality of them taking up their arms that they have a constitutional right to have to defend themselves and defend their freedom? Like, that's, I don't think we're very far away of that becoming a possibility. So, yeah.
Wasn't there a second young person shot too?
Yeah. There was Kujame Powell. There's video of that too, and they a couple weeks ago or last week, they took over another city council meeting to really make their voices heard about that. But literally like a week after my friend was shot, there was another unarmed young black man. I think he was 22 or 23, had some mental illnesses, and the police said that they ran him with a gun, and then a video was released where he actually was just walking and he was like 8 feet away from them, and they shot him multiple times and killed him. And that's video you can find on YouTube. So there's been a lot of deaths. There's mobilization around John Crawford, who was a man who was shot in Walmart for holding a toy gun. People are going, and it's kind of hopeful in a sense, because now when these things happen, people are no longer just sitting down there, literally taking to the streets. So there's going to be a big mobilization in Beaver Creek, Ohio, where the shooting in Walmart happens later this month, that people will be responding to. And people in Ferguson are more than happy to make all of these connections, send people there, bring people here, share all this information. Like, it's definitely moving. It's definitely moving.
I actually can't express how appreciative I am of the love and bravery you've shared with us. I guess thinking about your story and the kind of internal transformation that you're also sharing with us tell us kind of like the facts on the ground. And the ways people organize. It makes me think of the relationship between our own interiority and the kind of regime of white supremacy and settler colonialism, and the way it sort of persists. And I guess what I'm getting at is that our states of mind, as they are locked into that. And to not change, to not enter into this new relationship is actually to participate in the maintenance of all these injustices.
That's true. That's deep. That's true. There are protesters who said that. Like, your inaction is a crime. Your silence is a crime. Like, you standing there and taking this and letting this happen is a crime. So navigating that active continuation of it with also just the sort of relative blind ignorance. Like, I go back again to the people that I met Saturday morning who I felt so betrayed because I actually trusted them. I don't think that they're bad people. I don't think that they're actively racist, but how do you get them to walk 2 or 3 blocks down and actually engage with that, as opposed to sort of standing and shaking their finger at it? That work is the trickier of everything. The trickiest of everything, I think, really. Sure. Let's do one more question, and I think I have to run. Great. That's it. Please sign those sheets and sign up so I can move you on. And thank you so much.
I suppose I know that you were done, but you're going to hook us into something. Oh, mahogany something. Okay, great. Is it one of the things? Yeah.
Yes.
Please make some noise one more time. And we'll be continuing discussion through art October 4th. We are at the Fowler Arts Gallery. We have flyers going around, but you can find us on Instagram or on Facebook, Pratt MFA Writing, to find out more events. October 4th it happens, 6:30, featuring over a dozen artists getting ready for Ferguson and sending money for the legal aid fund and things like that.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. We probably should have had a signage.
There's also a group, it's very in its very nascent stages, but Netta Sama, who is a poet, has started a group called Artists Against Police Brutality. And I don't really, you can connect with her on Facebook. I don't know what actions they've planned or she has planned in this.
Where's it?